We are coming to you from Dyersville, Iowa, where a man once heard voices that told him to build a baseball stadium. And he did it. And that man's name was Kevin Costner. But another man had a dream to build a brewery here in Dyersville. If you build it, will they drink? They will, on this episode of Brewed. We are in the basement and the brew house of Textile Brewing Company in Dyersville, Iowa. We're here in the brew house because upstairs, where the tap room is just packed. And
no seats.
That's good news.
Very good news, yeah.
Textile Brewing Company in Dyersville. I'm sure you get asked this question a lot, and I debated whether or not to phrase it this way, but did you build this brewery because you heard voices?
Yeah, I heard
like
voices.
Moonlight Graham, or if you build it, they will drink? Like, walk us through it.
Yeah, I would like to say that that's how it happened, but they were real human voices that I heard.
That's probably a better story. Yeah.
So initially, I moved back to Dyersville. I'm from here, and we just saw a need in town for a brewery, and we just looked around, and this building was available. They were using this as a sewing factory until 2017, and so it was 2018 when we looked at it, so it had just closed, and it just was an amazing space, and we just saw a lot of potential in it, and we kind of did the reverse, where a lot of people start out brewing beer and decide to open a brewery. Well, we decided to open a brewery, and then I learned how to make beer. But
well, the legend I heard was that your wife woke up and decided we're going to open a brewery.
She did, yeah.
That was just a decision that she made.
She did, and then she just kept bringing it up. And I'm a pharmacist, so I had a good job, and it was a little unnerving to try and consider changing all of that and taking that risk, but I'm glad we did that.
So you fall in love with the space first, and as you mentioned, this was a sewing facility.
Yes.
They called it here, the locals called it the pajama factory.
Correct, yes.
Because for like more than 100 years, they weren't making beer here, they were making pajamas.
They were, yeah. H.B. Glover, originally it was a engine manufacturing facility in like 1906, and then within 4 years it became a pajama factory, and it was a pajama factory for probably 70% of its life as a sewing factory.
So it's 2017.
Yeah.
You fall in love with this building in Dyersville, but you have no brewing experience?
None. So
See,
Google, I have a Google degree now, but yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Because this is why I find that hard to believe. People will not stop raving about the beer that you make.
Well, I made beer as fast as I could for about a year and a half. 5 gallons at a time, and I have people over, and they tell me how I did. I'd refine my process, and then when we got closer, I interviewed Nick back there, and I really wanted to find somebody with commercial brewing experience.
Right, because you had zero.
Because I had none.
Right.
And I don't know, with the interview with Nick, he didn't have any commercial brewing experience either, but there was just something about him that I liked.
You do understand, Tom, how much of this story doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like, you couldn't do this anywhere else.
Well, we bought all this equipment, the Blickman equipment behind us, and we're about 2 weeks from opening, and we hadn't made a beer yet. So we're pouring, Nick and I are pouring 55-pound bags of grain into the mash tun, and I just looked at him and I said, you realize if we can't turn 5 gallons into 5 barrels, we're screwed.
Right.
And he just looked at me with his big eyes. I said, it'll be okay. But inside I'm going, I hope it's okay.
Of all the breweries that we've been to, this is the first one where the story is, knew nothing about brewing, fell in love with a facility, and then decided to do a complete remodel. I mean, you did everything backwards, and somehow, now I wonder if more people need to do it the way you did it, Tom.
I don't know, maybe.
So the story, the way I heard it, Nick, is Tom's looking for a brewer for Textile when he opens up. And he's got a list of requirements. And number one is he wants someone with commercial brewing experience.
Yeah.
And he interviews you, and you start off the interview by saying, I have no commercial brewing experience. So Nick, why am I talking to you? How are you here?
just a lot of working and learning every single day. Like every day, even today, I feel like I'm still learning something new about the brewing process and the commercial brewing process. So I worked at a larger brewery in Atlanta, and I picked up a lot of industry stuff in terms of packaging and back of house. So I was able to kind of apply that to Tom while we were working on getting this place started and opened up.
So you get the place started. Do you have like an idea what kind of beer you want to make? How do you make the decision as to what kind of beer Textile is going to make?
Well, I think Tom and I both we both have a lot of respect, I think, for classic styles, and I think that's something we're always looking at. And especially for our demographic in our town, which is small town, not used to craft beer, we always try and keep them first. We're thinking of our neighbors and our community and what beers they would enjoy, rather than just what we're trying to make or what's trending in the market.
So something that like a hophead from either coast would want that might not fly here in Dyersville. You're thinking more traditional classic styles.
Yeah, and that's not to say we don't make those styles. I do that for me too sometimes.
Right.
But a lot of it, it's like your new Vienna that you're enjoying, or we have a number of lagers and alternative light beer options like our Hefeweizen and our Blonde Ale. So I really try and keep everything accessible.
Can you kind of walk us through what you're hoping to accomplish and how you get from writing it down on paper to pouring it into a glass?
Okay. I'm actually, I got my degree in art history. So when I'm researching a style or something like that, or, a new recipe, I'm looking at the history and the cultural context first before, I'm looking at the ingredients. Because that's just kind of how I learn. That's how I process things. So,
that is far out.
So for the Maibock specifically, I looked at why were Maibocks made? What were they made like? How were they in different regions? And why did people enjoy them?
I know that you didn't start with a ton of experience, but everything is just phenomenal here, and your reputation is well earned. I want to thank you for your time.
Yeah,
and cheers. And definitely get the new Vienna when you're here. This is outstanding. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.